Woohoo, we're live. Welcome to the 5th Social Media Mastermind with 98C. For those of you who haven't been here before, I'm Jen and this is Kyle, and we are your cruise ship directors for today. It's been a couple sessions since I've been in the room, so I'm excited to be back. And today we're going to be talking about the anatomy of a good social post. If you haven't been here before, just a couple things to note. We do the first half of the session, just us kind of talking and dropping some knowledge on you. And then at the end, we open things up for questions. We do have a couple people in the room with us. We have Hannah, who is monitoring the chat. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in there and she will get them onto us. We've also got Nicole and Ash, who are producing for us. So, give a virtual wave to them. Happy to have them in the room today. But yeah, so we're just gonna dive right in and get going. So like I said, we're gonna be talking about the anatomy of a good social post. And so what we're covering today, what's the point of posting on social? What's the point of even making a post in the first place? That's gonna be the first thing. Then we're gonna dive into funnels, right? So one of the things that we always stand on is that we want to have purpose in what we do. Social media is great for entertaining, it's great for connecting with your audience, but you also want to make sure that as a marketer, you're pushing people down towards a goal and really impacting the bottom line of your business. So we want to talk about that and why that matters in the anatomy of a post. We want to talk about what we call the 4 objectives. Anybody who's worked in social knows that it can be really overwhelming and pretty daunting actually to sit down in front of a blank piece of paper and figure out how you can even start writing posts sometimes, or maybe you've been doing it for a while and you're starting to scrape the bottom of that inspiration well. So we like to say that we have a system for how to overcome that or how to continue beating that drum to make sure that you're driving your customers to the right place. The 4th thing we're going to talk about is social post components. So what actually goes into a post and maybe what are the terms that you'll be hearing if you're in a creative meeting or if you're leading those creative meetings, what is the language that you need to adapt so that everybody knows and can be on the same page with what you're talking about. And then last is the good post checklist. So there's a series of filters that you can run each post through before you hit publish or before you send it off for approval. So make sure we'll give you this little checklist so that you can put it through those filters and make sure that everything is hitting the boxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
And we have a bonus at the very end too that we're not going to run through, but it'll be something I think very helpful for everyone who's in here today.
Yeah.
So
mystery.
So let's get started. Let's talk about the point of social. What's the point? There's a lot that we've kind of talked about already. We've talked a little bit more about philosophically, what about social? We've talked about the audiences, all the different profiles. Basically, there's with any social media team at any organization, there's kind of 2 worlds that you have to bridge, right? There's the creative side, the side of you that wants to go explore new ideas and create something that's really interesting, but you still have that business side, right? So to mend them together, right at that seam is where social happens. And the entire goal of your presence, eventually you want to positively impact your bottom line, right? You want to increase your company's revenue, whatever the objective is, you want it to go up and to the right. There is a small caveat to that, which is that you don't want to be selling all of the time. If you're selling all the time, you're not really building that community. All you're doing is just writing ads in a place where organic conversations need to be had. So really, really difficult and challenging at times. And there are times where you do need to sell. If you have a campaign, something that's, very seasonal, but also very important and metrics driven for your organization, obviously you do need to promote that. What we're saying is not every single post is an overt sell. It can't be. There's no way to build that connection with your people if you're always trying to shove something down their throat. So one of the ways that we really like to visualize how to bring our creative work over to the business side, over to our clients to impact their numbers. Every marketer uses them. I think mixed feelings about it. I used to really not enjoy thinking and talking about funnels. But as we've worked with more and more clients and brought our processes and our ideas over to their side of the business, their side of the partnership, funnels have been so helpful just to visualize, just to define where we are, how do we know when we're talking to people, how do we know what to say and when to say it. So we'll kind of walk you guys down through. This is actually, we pulled these funnels from a recent client presentation. So like this is real stuff, like we actually use this. We'll just kind of walk you down through basically the biggest 4 funnel stages. We have one client who has like 8 or 9 funnel stages, and they're just variations of this one. So it's just a little bit more granular.
Make it as simple as possible.
Yeah. So we'll start at the very highest level, Jen.
Yeah. Another note I want to make as we dive into this too is that when you are the key person on a social team, or you're presenting to other stakeholders or presenting to your own clients, one of the things that we've learned over the years is that presenting a social strategy can actually be really complex and really hard to get across. And so by putting it into this language is something that can help frame what you're trying to do too, and help teach and inform your superiors or clients, whoever that may be, what you're doing, and put reason behind it too. So it might seem like, kind of more theory, but it's actually very important. So the first step in the funnel is awareness, right? So you got to make sure that people know you exist. People are always going to have problems, right? And so there's going to be so many different solutions out there. So how do you make sure that they know that you are one of the solutions? And that's thinking about I say this a lot. One of the things, and I've probably said it a billion times on this already, is thinking on like laterally. So what are the problems that people are having? You might not want to say, for instance, like we do this thing and hit that on the nail. Think about the symptoms around it. Think about the things that trigger something. And that just kind of helps to open up a bigger net to problems that people are experiencing that are relevant to you. In that journey, you want to make sure that you're sharing what you're doing. So people need to know that you exist, and they need to know exactly what you do. Otherwise, they are never going to be able to find you. And so the wider you can cast that net of awareness and then narrow in on what their problem is, then the closer you're going to get to reaching more people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I just had a million examples come into my head of talking about the symptoms versus the actual solution. I don't know which one to go with. Insurance, like we're working with an insurance agency. Yes. What they do is provide insurance services, right? But what are the symptoms? There's worry, there's anxiety, there's the fear of losing everything that I have in my company. So those are the messages that are kind of centered around the nucleus of we sell insurance.
Or there's even specific problems like there's hail damage on my roof.
Yep.
What do I do now? So that can draw you into something like that might be one problem, but then as an insurance provider, what else can you do? You're not just servicing people with hail damage, you're servicing beyond that. So how can you take a problem that isn't what you do? You don't fix hail damage, you give people peace of mind. And so how can you take that problem and segue that into something else?
Right. Awesome. So that's kind of the direction at the very, very top level. Awareness, people just need to know you're out there. As you kind of move people down into the funnel, the really cool thing too with social is that in a lot of ways, like you have the entire funnel present at all times. Like anyone can go to your profile and see all of the different stages of the funnel and all the pieces of content that you're creating for each stage, right? So the next stage, consideration, people will kind of move themselves into it. So it's if awareness is your first step, they find you, they see you for the first time. Consideration would be like, oh, I'm going to hit follow, or I'm going to hit like I'm going to interact. So they kind of move themselves through the funnel. So this next step, consideration, this is really, this is showing them why you're a little bit different. So they know what you do. Now they need to know that you're the best choice to solve their problems. So now they have a personal connection because, oh, you offer this, I have this problem. So now you're kind of hitting them with content that shows just why you're unique, why you're different, why they should even think about hitting follow, hitting like, going to the website. They're still not at a point where they're ready to purchase or make some sort of commitment yet, but they at least understand how you do what you do.
Yeah, and reinforcing that you know what you're talking about, reinforcing that you are a subject matter expert, reinforcing that you can be somebody that's trusted. If they're going to give you business, dollars, time, whatever that might be, you want to be able to convince them that you're worth it.
Cool.
Yeah. The next one then is conversion.
The big one.
So the big one, this is what we're always working towards, right? it's not quite the bottom of the funnel, so there's other things that we're working towards, but it is the thing that will be what the stakeholders in your business or the client on the other side of the table, that's the thing that people are going to be looking for. What impact did you have? And that's where conversion comes in. And so in terms of a perfect social post or the anatomy of a social post, you need to let people know what those next steps are and what things they need to do in order to work with you, buy from you, interact, or whatever that business goal is. You said something in the beginning, Kyle, that was very much like you don't want to sell all of the time, and that's certainly very, very true. You definitely don't want to be putting sales messages into the awareness or consideration stage, but conversion, you have to get a little bit of that in there and just let people know how they take the next step.
Yep.
It really drives a specific action. So whether that is join a course, whether that is sign up for a consultation, whether that is buy this product, that's when you need to tell people, go to my website, go to my Amazon page, whatever that might be, that they can actually take that next step.
Yeah, and it's very clear too. So and we'll talk about this too a little bit later, but it's not just a link right to the store page. It's here's what this link is. If you would like to do X, Y, or Z, here's how you can do it. Go to the link. So it's all about setting it up too, so it doesn't feel like a sell too. So conversion, that is kind of the big one, and I feel like a lot of like traditional funnels, they kind of stop there. Like once you get the sale, it's over. Like there's no more funnel, nothing else needs to happen. But we disagree, and especially on social, like you have the ability to do so much more. You can take it an extra step. And that last step, you can call it whatever you want. Advocacy is what we like to call it. And basically that is leveraging the people who have already made it through the first 3 stages of your funnel. Every single one of them had a problem that you solved. That's a story. Like that's a piece of content. That is proof that you can do what you say you can do. So leverage it. Use them. Use their stories in content. But also you can leverage their accounts as well. So you start to tag them. You start to share each other's stuff. There's just an extra level of interaction there and connection that you can find simply by just showing your work. It's just proof. It's just proof that you can do what you say you do.
Yeah, it's like you do have value. They're not necessarily taking your word for it. They're taking other people's word. And that can mean a lot. Obviously, you're going to toot your own horn and beat your own drum, but let other people do it for you too.
Yep. Okay, cool. So those are the steps of the funnel. So that's kind of like one of the first pieces of the puzzle. Next piece, and I feel like we should have added the matrix in. I feel like visually.
I know.
Maybe I'll do it. I'll put it together.
Next
in the
session,
funnel.
we're going to talk more tactically, I think, about planning out content, but
so,
we can allude.
So we talked about the 4 funnel stages, what each one needs to accomplish, how you can do that through content. Now, how do you slice up those different posts, right? So you attach one post to each stage of the funnel. Basically, there are 4 different ways that you can slice up that post just to keep things a little bit fresh, a little bit interesting, keep your community engaged and interested in what you're doing. You're going to run through those.
Yeah, so one thing I want to say too, I feel like I'm always like doing weird little asides, but a lot of people who end up with a career in social media haven't necessarily studied marketing. I think that there's a lot of different ways that you can get here, and it's not always through communications. For instance, I have an English and a history degree, and I knew nothing about marketing before I just kind of like got carted into it somehow. But the idea of a funnel was completely foreign to me until I started working in marketing and never really had a theoretical base for it. And so for me, it was just like, it was something weird for me to wrap my brain around. I think it's really not that complicated of a concept, but I just couldn't necessarily see how that could make me be creative. And so with social, I'm sure that any amount of time that you've spent online teaching yourself or reading about things, you've probably heard the concept of content buckets. And that's something that has guided us for a really long time. And you can make them as unique as possible. You can kind of slice and dice them for your business. But I think ultimately, no matter what you name them, there's really 4 things that you should be able to do with social for your business. And that's what we call the 4 objectives. So the first one is to entertain. The second one is to inform. The third one is to show your work. And the 4th one is to tell a story. You can do this method whether you are a product-based company, a service-based company, an artist, whatever it might be. So break it down easily, entertain, give people something to come back with. Show them something like behind the scenes, show them something that is funny. Like, is there like a meme that you can pull into? Or for us, we do a lot of like meet the team, or we tell, there's a lot of behind the scenes things that happens within our business, and people really love the magic of video production, and so it's fun for us to show that. It's fun for them to watch it, so that's very much in our sort of entertain bubble. Inform is very much, how can you teach somebody something that you know? And a lot of the times we get mired down in the work of it, and we forget that the knowledge that we have is valuable, and that the people that we're speaking to and our audience on the other side doesn't know the things that we do. So how can you inform them? How can you teach them? We call that the curse of knowledge, and that's probably something that you'll see later on in the slide deck, but especially what we're doing right here. When we talked about starting this mastermind, so much of it was like, well, everybody knows these things. We're not saying anything too profound, but that's because you have the curse of knowledge. And so what are the things that somebody entering at the base level can learn from you? Because chances are they're going to find that so valuable. Show your work. Again, for us, I think that 9/8 Central is probably one of the best, most tangible examples for it, because it's easy for us to talk about, but we produce videos. We have finished content that we could show. A commercial spot or social media spots, things that we can tangibly show that, hey, this is our work and this is what you can get if you work with our company. And lastly is tell a story. And that can take so many different forms. And again, for us, we can take that finished work and we can tell the story of how it came together. And if you go to our social media, you'll see that we have case studies. You'll see that we tell the stories of our employees. We tell, there's so many different ways that we've cut that up. Yeah. And there's so many different trails that you can wander down to figure out how to tell that story.
Cool. That's awesome. Okay. All right, so this next portion, I was explaining my thoughts about it to Jen, and she gave me a blank stare. So I'm going to try my best to make it make sense. Recipe for a social post. So it's basically, let's talk about the different components that go into a social post. So in the presentation, I have it's just a screenshot of one of our posts, and basically, just like any social post that you see, there's two big things that you're looking at, right? So you're looking at words, right? So at the very top, you have your post copy, your text. Everything that's included in a text. You have your hook, right, which is something to really drag people in. You have that fleshy, meaty body, which is you have the hook.
What a descriptor.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's meaty. You want to sink your teeth in it. It's got some substance.
So visceral.
Well, we're talking about anatomy. This is, yes. I can get weird.
Sorry, we'll get serious.
No, it's fine. So the fleshy part, the bloody part, the juicy part of it is just really it's an extension of that hook, right? But it also sets up for that payoff, which is housed within that CTA. You hear CTA, call to action, usually think like, oh, I want people to make a purchase. It's not always the case, right? Like, we always try to balance this for ourselves and our clients. Of course, we want them to take action, but think about all the different types of action that you can take on social. Obviously, you can click a link, right? Fill out a form on a website. That's just one. You could leave a comment. You could tag somebody. You could share. You could like. There's all different things. We always like to ask for some sort of engagement. So if we have post copy that's really captivating, maybe it's, personal in a way, less of a salesy type of copy. We usually want people to kind of take that and run with it on their own. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, what do you think about this? How are you dealing with this thing?
But even that, if it's telling the story for our new team member or something, it's even just like say hi to them. It doesn't have to be a very profound call to action. It's just some way to engage and entertain.
It's good. So there's the top part, right? That's just the words. Usually underneath the text of any post, we have some sort of asset, some sort of media. For us, it's a lot of video. It could be some photos too. Some posts don't even really need assets. Some may pull in a preview, like from a link. But when you look at it visually, that's really all you see. And what I would really tell everyone here is that there are some things underneath the surface that you kind of aren't seeing, but they're really like what I call the secret ingredients to a good social post. There are two things really. It's do you have a purpose for this post? Like what is the point? I mean, it could be as simple as I want people to go to my website and fill out a newsletter sign up, or for us, like we have a really great community of people who follow and interact with us. Like we want them to feel something. So like we want them to feel inspired or motivated. Attaching some sort of emotion as the end goal to a post is really like the next level of creating a community that cares and like wants to see more from you.
Yeah.
So you have that objective, usually emotion based, but then you have a theme, which is for us it's kind of like the wrapping paper. So like if you were just focused on, okay, I'm writing a post copy, it has a hook, it has the body, it has the CTA, I attached a photo. How do they all work together? Like, how are they all speaking on the same language? Do they use the same voice? Like, I don't know. Is your word choice specific every single time? Does the image that you're using, does it connect with the post? So it's kind of like the glue for everything.
Yeah. I also just saw a message that our slides aren't working.
Yeah,
Is that okay? So just to come in here and say that we will send this later.
Yeah.
We have some really fabulous slides, and I'm kind of sad
Good. I
that
spent
you
so
can't
much time on
see
them.
the breakdown, but there is meat to this, I promise, and it might be a little bit more.
It's very visceral.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. But later, you can always go back and revisit and kind of see how we've broken everything down and get a better look. So yeah. In the presentation you can't see, we have the good post checklist, and that kind of goes very much in line with what Kyle just went through. The filters that you should run every post through to make sure that it's actually working towards that funnel, working towards your conversion goals, and working towards the results that you're proving that you can bring. Every time you write a post, does it focus on a funnel stage? Is there a hook and a payoff in the CTA? Does it give a clear direction to my audience? Does it have a clear theme? And does it make sense? So those are things that you want to keep in your head every time you write something. And I think another thing is if you put yourself in the audience's seat, does it make sense to them? Does it motivate them to take a next step? Does it make them feel something? What are the things that they should be thinking, feeling, wondering about as they see that post? Also, go back and look at your post and put it up in line with the 4 objectives. Does it entertain? Does it educate? Does it show or work? Or does it tell a story? Kyle mentioned our little matrix that we like to use, and one way to think about this, and especially I think is a great brainstorming tool, is to put the stages of the funnel going down the page on one side and put the 4 objectives going across the top of it, and just start brainstorming. At the awareness level, how can you entertain? At the awareness level, how can you inform? And just kind of like let things free flow from there, and that can give you a bit of a structure for how to make all of this content make sense and still hit all of those buckets on the good post checklist.
Yeah. I'm thinking the next session is content planning.
Yeah.
So we'll have that matrix. We'll walk through it. We'll give you guys. You'll have this checklist too. Beautifully, I can't emphasize enough how beautiful this slide deck is. It's so good. So you
Very
have
colorful.
A beautiful checklist to go through. So you'll kind of use that with this matrix, and then we'll talk about content buckets, which you mentioned earlier, and how you can come up with those. So, so you'll take that, combine it with how to create one singular good post, and you'll be basically on your way. Like you'll be teaching us stuff probably next month. So. We have a couple things also at the end of this that no one can see, but it's basically we pulled examples of work that we've found from ourselves, from clients, from big brands, from small brands, that kind of utilize those 4 objectives at each stage in the funnel. So we just pulled examples, and none of these are like full scale productions. Like most of these are stuff that are shot on a smartphone or with a very simple camera setup. They are all video, but it is a way to start thinking about content at each stage of the funnel. There's
a really great mix here, I would say, that you can get inspiration no matter what tools you have or no matter what your resources are. And I mean, I would really encourage you to go through and even explore the profiles of a lot of these companies, just because they're doing a really great job. They are finding so many different ways to share information and speak about their company in ways that are just a little bit out of the box and very well done. So
yeah, I would say take a note and look at what's consistent about all of these brands too, and all of their presence. The presences. Is that the plural of presence?
Yeah, I think it works.
Take a look at all of their presences on social too. Look at the consistency, and here's a little challenge too as you're going through all their profiles. See if you can kind of pick out like at which stage of the funnel all of their content is created for. Like, what does their awareness messaging look like? What is their consideration? How do they convert people? Like, how do they lead people into some sort of sale? And then are they leveraging their existing client or customer base for more content? So those are in there. I'll send it out in probably like an hour or so. So you will have them. And again, the slides are so good. They look great.
They're great. You'll enjoy. One other thing too that you'll notice is that there are some instances where content can sort of transcend a bucket or an objective. It doesn't need to just very neatly fall into only entertain. You can still entertain and inform at the same time. You can still tell a story and entertain at the same time. So don't think of it as the hard and fast, black and white, really hard lines that you need to follow. This is really meant to just kind of guide you and give you those barriers that help you think more creatively. But yeah,
cool.
I think that's it.
And that's it. That's all we had for
we were quick today.
For today. Yeah. Like I said, we will send that slide deck, so you will have everything. There are a few things visually, obviously the links to the samples of work you'll need, but we also have that checklist too that I would just print. Honestly, I would print that out and just keep it like in your workspace, just as a reminder to like cross these off for every post. That's something that we use on our social team. It's like when I'm reviewing calendars for our team, that's kind of exactly what I go through. Like, what is the theme here? Is there a very clear takeaway? Do we have that hook? Do we have some sort of meaty, fleshy center? Do we have a CTA? Is it set up correctly, and does it kind of pay off what you set up in the hook? And then is the whether it's a photo, some sort of graphic, or a video, does it just kind of tie everything together? So that's it. That's all we have for today. So we have a lot of time for questions, if anyone has any. And they can be about this post specifically. They can be about social in general. I don't know. It could be about our company. We're open books. You can just ask us whatever. Mm-hmm. So Hannah is on monitoring the chat for this Zoom. So if you just put your questions in there, or you can turn your mic and your camera on and ask them that way too. Totally up to you guys. Nicole, can you insert the Jeopardy theme music?
And if there are no questions, are there things that you would like to learn about in future sessions? Are there things that have just kind of mystified you as a social media professional, or somebody who's thinking about getting into it? What are things that are kind of burning you that you want to know about? And that's something that we can also plan future sessions around too. It's always the fun part, right?
Yeah, the waiting.
See Hannah typing.
Faster. Type faster.
Never mind. All right.
Cool. I think we'll give like maybe another couple of seconds while we wrap. If you think of anything, throw it in there. If not, I will send a follow-up email here in a few minutes. If you have any questions that you think of after you get that, you can always just reply to that email and send me whatever is on your mind. It will definitely help us with planning. Like I said, we'll probably do the next one about content planning in general, some things you can do to make that a little bit easier. But we're also up for anything. If you want to do like a one-on-one to help solve a specific problem, or just need someone to bounce ideas off of, that's what we're here for. So, I see one.
Yay, Maddie! Thank you. How do you layer goal setting and tracking in with your content planning, knowing that different kinds? Okay, sorry, I'm gonna read this out loud. How do you layer goal setting and tracking in with your content planning, knowing that different kinds of posts have different goals? Like you mentioned, not every post has to lead directly to a sale.
Yeah, so for me, the evolution of that funnel thing is to attach a goal to each one too. So it could be as high level as, like, obviously at the awareness stage, you want to reach as many accounts as possible. So impressions, reach, like measuring those, figuring out how you can increase those. Consideration too, so that's probably more of like a follow metric, probably some sort of engagement metric too. Yeah. Conversion, that one's probably the most clear, which is your set bundle of conversions that you have, your email sign up, a sale, whatever it is. That's a very clear metric to follow. And then the advocacy is, I guess you could probably measure that through shares as well. If somebody's sharing like your work
reviews,
reviews
would be
is a great
thing.
One. Yeah. Any testimonies or any stories like that.
Yeah. Sometimes it could be things that aren't necessarily so numbers driven. So, for instance, if you have a product company and somebody asks a question about your product, and you have another customer come in and answer it, that's advocacy too. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily an easy thing to report on or an easy thing to put a number behind. But I know in the past for clients that I've had to report for, I would take screenshots of those sorts of things. So to kind of go off of what Kyle said, I would say lay out your funnel and tie a goal to each piece of the funnel. So again, if it's consideration or if it's awareness might be impressions, consideration might be a follow. Tie those very specific metrics to that piece of the funnel. And then if you use a tool, like we've used Sprout Social for a long time, but there's plenty of different social publishing tools that you can use that often let you categorize posts or tag posts in a way. And so we have tagged them in accordance to a funnel or even into the content buckets. Or you can do both even. And so that kind of gives you a way to pull and remember what each individual post is supposed to do for you and help you layer that into reporting. So that might be very tactical, but I think as long as you kind of have the strategic planning with your metrics tied to your pieces of your funnel and then a way to tactically track it, that can help bring that all together. Yep. And again, remember that not all of these are going to be super numbers driven. A lot of it is what do we call it? There's the feely bits and the numbersy bits, qualitative and quantitative.
If you'll remember our reporting session, there's quantitative and qualitative data, quantities, numbers, qualities, the other stuff, the flowery stuff, the feelies.
I literally never remember that.
So what you could do, how you can use those is maybe, I would say even find one qualitative and then one quantitative objective for each stage of the funnel too. And it basically just kind of clarifies a little bit more. So like if one of your goals is increase engagements, you could post like maybe the worst thing ever and everyone's like, oh, this is terrible, I hate this, you have terrible customer service. You've reached your engagement goal, right? But it's all negative, like it's not helping your bottom line. So there's always that like the yin to the yang, the balancing the qualitative with the quantitative is what I'd say there too. I think one more thing, I'm just throwing information, but a last step, everyone should build out their funnel, regardless of your organization. If you're working with clients, like build out a funnel for each of them. It's defining each stage, like that's very important, but also define how they transition from stage to stage. So what takes somebody from awareness to consideration to conversion and then to advocacy. Always have that defined too. It's just, otherwise you're just leaving gaps, and it's really, you can start to build like your KPI dashboard more specifically to moving people down the funnel, and you can start to see like your numbers narrow in too, which is, it's cool for data geeks like maybe like me. It's fun, but yeah.
The quantitative people.
Qualitative. You got it right. That's good. That was a great question. Thanks.
Yeah, that was a great question.
Anything else?
You're welcome.
You're welcome, Addie. Thank you for the question.
Yeah. It's always fun to answer the questions.
Yeah.
That's
This
my
is the
favorite
best part,
part. Cool.
Anyone got anything else? We're going to do 10-second countdown. That feels weird. Type away. I did it in my head.
I was going to say,
again.
that was part of our sound check. Whatever. They told Kyle to count to 10. He didn't do it out loud.
Sorry.
Kind of defeats the purpose.
Give me clear directions. I'll follow them.
Anyway, on that note, I think we're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks so much for coming, guys. We always have fun with these and appreciate you coming with your questions and your attention. So, yeah.
Bye.
Bye.